announcement?
Yes, we are recording.
There we go.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to today's meeting of CS Bars. I'd like to start by asking that roll be called to establish a quorum.
Just view the speak.
Sorry, one second. We're having a few techs. All right. Oh, sorry, I'm still having an echo here.
For those watching the meeting to this year in 2024, there are some slight changes to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act and meeting rules. And as a result, we're having an on-site location. Teresa is on that location, and it is one of the first times we are using that. So we appreciate your patience as we get used to this new format.
You're muted, Teresa.
All right.
Would you like me to call roll?
That might be very helpful. Thanks, Natalie.
Sure. Okay. Linda Keller.
Present.
Karen Travis.
Present.
George Leal.
Present.
Jessica Park.
Present.
Paul Kramer.
Present.
Kevin Marshall. Not present. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we move on, I would like to take a moment to invite Bridget Grammy, currently Deputy Chief of Programs, to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her new leadership related to admissions.
Thank you so much, Linda. So, yes, so as you mentioned, my name is Bridget Grammy. I'm currently the Deputy Chief of Programs here at the State Bar. And as you may have heard, we are doing a little bit of a reorganization. So we're going to create this new division of consumer protection, admissions, access, and inclusion. And I will be heading up that division. So I'm really looking forward to working with all of you and the admissions staff. I've been at the bar for about 2.5 years now. But before that, I spent 8 years at the University of San Diego Law School, teaching in the Center for Public Interest Law, California Regulatory Law, and working a lot with admissions-related issues and law school-related issues. So I'm really looking forward to this work and all of these wonderful people that are working on it, and happy to be of assistance to any of you. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Welcome. Let's move on to approval of the December 7th, 2023 minutes of the CS Bars. Is there a motion for approval of those minutes?
I had a couple corrections.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay. Hold on. I have to pull it up again. First was in the narrative, it describes the meetings for this year, the dates of the meetings. I think that's at the top of page, well, the middle of page 2, staff reports. It says the proposed dates are as follows, but no dates are listed. So I think we should add those dates to the minutes. And at the top of page, there's the phrase incentives to registrar financially. It should be register. And right before the adjournment, it refers to the law school performance report, and it says released, and then doesn't have a date after that word released. So maybe add the date that it was released there. With that, I'd move approval.
Okay, great. So we have a motion to approve with those corrections to add dates, one to correct the typo from registrar to register. Any further discussion? Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Right. Natalie, would you mind taking the roll for the approval of minutes?
Of course. Okay, Karen Travis. No, okay, I'll come back to you, Karen. I see that you are
There I am. Yes,
perfect. I'm sorry, what was your vote?
yes.
Thank you. George Leo?
Hello,
Aye.
hello. Yeah, speaking.
George Leo?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Jessica, yes. Jessica Park?
Aye.
Paul Kramer?
Yes.
Linda Keller?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, great. Moving on to the chair's reports, just a couple of notices. One is just a
Hello,
reminder.
testing. 1, 2, 3, 4.
How are we doing at our hybrid site? We can hear you testing. Is that a good sign?
Okay, so.
I think so. Sorry, we're just having an echo issue. Very apologize for that.
Okay, no problem. So just a reminder, the CBE meeting on Friday, January 26th. There might be various items of interest to those in the audience. The Ed Standards items include item related to the profile of the California law schools. Also, I believe we have a special set item today at 1:30 on professional competence, specifically talking about MCLE and career counseling. So we'll make sure to break for that at 1:30. With that, I will turn it over to the first staff report regarding the annual audit of the 601.7 forms.
Chair Keller, did we already do the call for public comment?
No, we did not. I apologize. I lost track there. Thank you very much. So before we move on to any staff reports, of course, we need to take the time to invite public comments up to 3 minutes. If there is anyone on the Zoom audience, you can indicate that you would like to give comment by using raise hand. If you called in, you can use *9. We did receive one written public comment that was distributed to the committee. I don't believe we had anyone signed up in advance to give public comment, but if we can check to see if anyone is indicating an interest now, that would be great.
Dean Keller, there are no hands raised. And as a reminder, we now have a San Francisco public site where people can attend in person or make a public comment in person. But the members of the public will continue, as they are currently, to be able to observe remotely and to make remote public comments, though we don't have any who wish to do so today. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, now we can move on to the first staff report.
Okay, thank you. So the first staff report is a reminder of an annual event pursuant to Business and Professions Code 6061.7A. All accredited and unaccredited schools post new disclosures each year. Ideally, they post them at the time that they complete their annual reports, which are due to the State Bar each year by November 15, but they're required to do so in January. So each year in January, we send out a communication to the school to ask them to send us the link to show that it is correctly placed per the statute on their website and that the 6061 document is updated and complete. So that will be happening shortly, and we look forward to a prompt return, and we'll be updating CS BARS and also the committee on the status of that audit once it is completed. It will be done in similar way as has been done in past years. So thank you in advance to all of the schools for your posting and for your cooperation with the audit.
Great, thank you. Up next then, we have the latest on the July 2024 bar administration and testing locations.
Great, thank you so much, Dean Keller. So last week at the Board of Trustees meeting, the board approved of the July 2024 administration model as well as the testing facilities. For July 2024, we will be pursuing a continuation of what we've referred to as the reduced facilities model, which is the same approach that we are set to use in February 2024. What this looks like is fully in person at 8 contracted facilities, down from 13. But we've added the addition of some no-cost facilities at the State Bar offices in Los Angeles, Judicial Council in San Francisco, as well as some space at the University of San Diego. The big update that I think is welcome news is that we also secured large general testing facilities in Sacramento and San Diego. And in response to public comment received at the board meeting, we have instituted a possibility for applicants to defer their 2024 bar exam fees for July 2024. Essentially, we're recognizing that February 2024 bar exam administration did not include test sites in the Sacramento and San Diego areas, and that will and those facilities will be available in July. And so individuals who live in the Sacramento or San Diego metropolitan areas can request to withdraw from the February 2024 bar exam and apply their fees as a credit to the July 2024 exam. And to do so, an applicant just needs to submit a general request through the applicant portal, and it takes just a few clicks. So we've made this process very simple, and we've communicated this widely to several hundred applicants in these metropolitan areas. The deadline to apply for this credit is 11:59 p.m. on February 2nd. And those who request a credit and are unwilling or unable to sit for the July 2024 bar exam will forfeit these exam fees. So this is really an opportunity for an individual to be able to shift those fees over to July and hopefully be able to access a facility that is more convenient and more centrally located. And so just as a reminder, these are those July 2024 facilities, large locations in Pasadena, Ontario, Oakland, Anaheim, Sacramento, and the Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista is the newly secured San Diego area location. And then we have several smaller testing accommodation only facilities in Sacramento, Orange, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego.
All right, thank you very much, Cody. And I will say on behalf of takers in San Diego, and I'm sure Sacramento, we appreciate all of the efforts on the part of the bar to reinstate those locations that are so important to those takers. Let's see, up next we have the update on admissions fee increases. Sorry, Natalie, you're muted.
I'm going to ask to recognize Donna Hershkowitz from our audience
There we go.
to join as a panelist to lead this report.
Thank you.
Welcome, Donna.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me here. I'm not sure how many of the members of CS Bars were listening to the board meeting on Thursday, so I wanted to just take the opportunity to give you a very brief recap of where we are on the fee increases that relate to the CAL's annual report as well as the inspections for the CALs. As you'll recall, the board had had recommended, or staff had recommended, some significant fee increases to in order to right the admissions fund and to address the structural deficit in the admissions fund. After 2 rounds of public comment, the board adopted fee increases for all of the areas in which they were recommended, with the exception of the 2 relating to the CALs. And that was in response to public comment that the board had received at the September meeting. And so ultimately what staff did, following the September board meeting, we put out for another round of public comment, an alternative version that looked at different ways to tier the fees that would be assessed to the CALs to minimize the impact on the students, since we are sort of cognizant of the fact that the way that the school would be able to handle the fees would be pass them along to the students. Wanted to minimize the impact on students such that students who attended smaller schools were not disadvantaged vis-a-vis students who attended larger schools. And so we developed various options for tiering those fees and sought public comment. There were 26 separate comments that were received. The public comments are included and included with the agenda item that was presented to the board at the January meeting, with some different ways to analyze the types of responses that we received. But ultimately, what we went to the board with was not a recommendation to adopt any of the proposals that went out for public comment, but rather we provided a status update to the board. Because among the 26 comments that were received, one was a comment that was penned by deans of 11 of the CALs. And in reading over that letter carefully, we concluded that we needed to step back for a moment and refine the recommendation. And so what I presented to the board was my plan for what would happen between the January meeting, where we were giving them this update, and the March meeting. And my plan is to convene a meeting with the deans of the CALs and to respond to a couple of the issues that are outlined in the letter, provide some more information on the financials that have we've talked about with CBE extensively, but to share that information on sort of the background financials with the CALs, to look at, and here's a place where I think really sort of more work should have been done sort of essentially at the front end, I'm sorry, was to provide a different fee structure for the sort of annual accreditation services for schools that become jointly accredited versus schools that are singly accredited. And so we'd like to talk about that. And also addressing the comment of the deans about the practice of requiring the deposit of 1/5 of the inspection fee sort of each year for 5 years. And ultimately, you know, what we had concluded, what I told the board that we'd be recommending was eliminating that requirement, setting the default that the CALs would be submitting the entire deposit in the year of that the inspection is scheduled to happen. If any CALs wanted to sort of use the state bar as a way to sort of bank that money over 5 years, you're welcome to continue to do so. But I imagine that you've got other accounts that might be getting you some interest where you'd prefer to keep that money. So we wanted to, I just wanted to share with you what we presented to the board. The agenda item that was attached to the board agenda outlines that process. And I just want to encourage the CALs deans to be on the lookout for an email from me to schedule that upcoming meeting so we can talk about these issues. Dean Keller, you're on mute.
Thank you. Yes, I was just going to chime in. Yes, I'm confident that the Calistines will look forward to that email and to setting something up. So, looks like Paul has a question for you though, Donna.
Hey, Donna, early on in the development of the fees, with an internal working group, we had a spreadsheet that showed us what the actual costs of the particular programs were and how much of those costs we were or were not recovering from the fees that were proposed. Does that spreadsheet still exist as a tool that could be made available to those of us who are interested in the fee issues?
Yes, certainly for the meeting with the CALs, we would have that portion of the spreadsheet that was sort of relevant to those fees. Absolutely, that was my intention to share that. And Paul, what I'd like to do is invite you to join that meeting as well, actually, if you're free as the chair of Ed Standards, so you can participate in the discussions that we're having on that front. But yeah, we have a version of that spreadsheet that is that I would be prepared to share.
Great, thanks.
Great. All right. It looks like we can at least start, Natalie, with recent developments before a special set item.
Sure, yes, I do have a couple, and by the time I finish, Kathy may very well have joined us. So these recent developments are things that have come up in the period of time since we have posted the agenda. We wouldn't have known about them sooner, but we did want to get the information out to you. The first one is that we hope to be testing a new tool for the annual report, similar information, but easier to enter, more convenient to enter if you're collaborating, as more of the schools are, in creating the report. So we are seeking people who would be interested in testing the tool, either members of CS BARs or also members from schools who may be watching, and we will reach out to the schools as well. So if that is of interest, please go ahead and let us know. And then also just 2 quick reminders. In 2024, the CS BARs meetings will take place on Tuesday, as this one is, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And finally, the period for application to serve on CS BARs as a member or as a public member is open. The applications are on the CS BARs page, and the terms for those selected, those will be selected in the summer, and they will start their terms in the fall. If there should be an unexpected vacancy prior, open vacancies are filled as they are, as there is a candidate that is possible to do that. So I know that all of you are already members, but I hope for those who are watching out in the public and for the general outreach that we'll do, that if you've been thinking about applying and you are a dean of an accredited or registered school, that you will do so. So those are the announcements that I have. I don't know if there are any questions about those. And if not, I do believe that Kathy is coming from another meeting, so I would actually not expect her until 1:30 sharp. So if you'd like to move on to the general planning for the law school meetings, we can do so. We can set the frame. Up to you.
Sure, we can just tee that up if you're wondering on that agenda item why, in January we are talking about proposed topics for the law school assembly, which is in November, and the registrars meeting, which is in October. In the past, we made a request for these topics, and it gave us more time to develop topics, exchange feedback, and I think that enhanced some of the program topics and offerings that were included in the law school assembly and the registrars meeting. So the idea here is to start teeing up ideas for potential topics. So we will be able to hopefully, I not only identify some topics, but without actually discussing the meat of the topics, maybe start also thinking about what sort of preliminary feedback, thoughts, or even presentations or work that CS bars might be able to do to lay a foundation for a more productive assembly when it comes to that in November. And Natalie, I don't know if it's always been this way. So maybe one quick question is, will both of these meetings continue to be available via Zoom?
That's the plan. This began during COVID as a measure that we had to take, but what we discovered is that we've received very positive feedback about them being online. They've allowed schools to bring more attendees to the meeting, and there's been an overwhelming interest to keep the meetings online.
Okay, great. Yeah, that is definitely in line with my experience, but just occurred to me that I wasn't sure if we had talked about whether that decision had been made to be able to keep that as open to as many participants as possible. I think that's a great approach.
Mhm.
So without jumping in and starting off the process and then stopping it in 30 seconds, I think we can probably just pause for a minute. This to say a little bit about this special set topic. Natalie,
Sure.
perhaps you could say a word or two about the speaker who will be joining us.
Sure. So Kathy Angiri will be visiting CS Bars for the first time. She's a managing attorney in our professional competence unit, and she'll be speaking about a few things in more detail than I can. The first one is that some of the law school resources that have been part of the LAP have been moved over to the professional competence area, and she'll talk about how your students will be able to access those. And then she'll also be talking about a couple of options for your attorneys who may be on your faculty, a new MCLE requirement, and some of the state bar offerings, some of which are free to fulfill that requirement. And then finally, the professional competence group also oversees MCLE for attorneys, and they are creating a new program that is about training the trainer to provide online education. And we know that this is something that some of you have been doing for quite some time. So she has some questions about that, and right on cue, I see that Kathy has arrived. So I'd love to recognize her so that she can meet with all of you.
Excellent, thank you.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate you
Okay,
being here.
great. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen. I do have just a really brief PowerPoint. I think it might be easier if I do it as opposed to having Teresa do it. Okay, let me just get this up. Okay, that should look right now. Great. All right. Well, thank you everybody for allowing me to speak to you today. My name is Kathy Ongiri, and I am the managing attorney in the Office of Professional Competence. So today, what I hope to talk to you about is some of the new MCLE requirements and expanded credit eligibility to include certain activities. I'm going to talk about the development of education at the State Bar, and then I'll end off with a discussion on about the lawyer assistance program. So this past year, we've had some changes to the MCLE rules. And I thought in terms of letting you know where we're at now, I thought it would be helpful to tell you where we were before. So prior to October 1st of 2023, attorneys were required to have 25 hours of MCLE credit every 3 years. In terms of what was required was 4 hours of legal ethics, 2 hours of recognition of elimination of bias, including 1 hour of implicit bias, and 1 hour of education addressing substance abuse or mental or physical health issues that affect the licensee's ability to perform legal services with competence. So now the way that this has been expanded is as follows. We still have the 25 hours every 3 years. However, we have a bit more requirements. So we still have the 4 hours of legal ethics education. We have the 2 hours of recognition of elimination of bias. And in terms of the competency credit, that got expanded to 2 hours. So previously, a lot of our education focused on the prevention and detection of substance use disorder and mental health issues. And we got a lot of feedback that that was a little bit late in the pipeline, and that it might be a good idea to really kind of instill some of the wellness practices that would prevent you from even getting that far on where the prevention and detection might be necessary. We've also included an hour of technology in the practice of law. The competence rule does include a comment that says that this does also require legal, technology. That competence involves that. So we did add that, especially with all the changes happening in the generative AI space, and it's really important for lawyers to know how to use technology in a meaningful way. So that has been added. And there's also been an addition of an hour of civility in the legal profession. And that one really came from the California Task Force on Civility. And they put out a list of recommendations, and this was one of them. So that has also been included. Okay, so that's the kind of the new MCLE landscape that we're looking at now. So I thought it would be helpful, as many of you are attorneys and you are in contact with lots of attorneys, soon to be ones. So we thought that that would be helpful to let you know what those changes are. The other new change that's pretty exciting is that we have a new state bar rule that allows licensees to receive participatory MCLE credit for coaching students, serving as an attorney scorer, or presiding over mock trial, moot court competitions, arbitration, or mediation competitions. And those are at all levels: middle school, high school, collegiate level, and law school. And this new credit, you can claim up to 2 hours during the compliance period. So, I mean, we understand that a lot of times people who are coaching these mock trials teams, they spend a lot more time. However, we have up to 2 hours currently. And when we recommend this one as staff, we really believe that it was consistent with the MCLE rules that allow credit for speaking and teaching. Now, we think that participation in mock trial and moot court, it requires kind of similar learning and preparation before participating in those programs, including brushing up on the rules of procedure and the evidence code, because those students really know it quite well. And then this also acknowledges the different types of learning styles and the benefits of experiential learning. So next up, I just wanted to talk to you really quickly about some of the education that we're doing at the State Bar. Now, the State Bar is currently working on developing a preventative education curriculum that will really assist licensees with getting their MCLE requirements and making sure that they know what rules apply to them and any updates and current things that may be changing. So one of the things that we've done in this effort since I joined the bar back in 2022 was to create toolkits. Now, these toolkits can be used at the local level, and what they are is a PowerPoint, a script or a lesson plan, and then handouts. So basically, what we hope is that people take these toolkits and teach at the local level, okay? Now, the first one that we did was last year, or I think it was the end of 2022, and that was the Client Trust Account Protection Program. And we received a lot of really great feedback around that. And so since then, we've kind of started to think about how we can create more toolkits and how we can engage our licensee population to kind of help spread some high quality education. And so since that time, we've also done a toolkit on the new Rule 8.3, the attorney misconduct rule. And we're also working on toolkits in the competency arena, both in the prevention and detection space, as well as the wellness space. Now, as part of the rollout for the toolkits, the State Bar will be doing a Train the Trainers program that really highlights the principles in adult education, teaching in a remote environment, and really helping to kind of spread the word of high quality education throughout the state and how the State Bar can assist with that. Now, as educators, I would really, really love any input that you could provide, especially around teaching in a remote environment. I know post-pandemic, I think we're back and forth sometimes. And so any tips around that would be really great. And just ways that you find it effective and engaging to provide online education. So if you're interested, or if you have some really great suggestions in that arena, I would suggest that you could send your top 3 tips to me. My information will be at the end of this program, and I also will drop it in the chat. Or else you can send it to Natalie. And now I do see a hand up, Linda.
Yes, just a quick question in terms of, before sending in tips, if people are interested, when you're saying online education, is this a format that would be synchronous, like lots of people on Zoom, or is this asynchronous where there are a bunch of videos that people are doing videos and assignments, or some?
Oh, yeah, so it would be synchronous. Yeah, it would be for our live program delivery. We do have e-learning courses as well. Probably not the same model that the law schools have, because there's a lot of that back and forth dialogue in a class, whereas we don't necessarily have the opportunity to, continue the dialogue. So yeah, so it would be for our live courses mostly.
Okay, for synchronous,
yes,
online teaching. Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, so if you have any ideas or just any thoughts on what makes education online better, please feel free to send them to me or to Natalie. Natalie, go ahead.
Well, I have a couple of questions. Kathy, what would be your timing? When would it be most helpful for you to receive these? I'm sure as soon as possible, but I know that you are looking to roll out these toolkits.
Yeah, so I would say as soon as possible, but no later than maybe end of February. We're not gonna be rolling out the training probably until March. And a lot of the tips hopefully will echo some of the tips I already have. So it won't require building out additional portions of the program. So yeah, probably mid to end of month in February.
Okay, terrific. And then just a point of clarification about the MCLE. The new requirements that you described, they will take place for those that need to report after January 31st of this year. Is that correct? So those that are reporting on by January 31st, 2024 will report under the old rules, and then going forward, anybody else will report under the new requirements?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. And then I love seeing the opportunity for the credit for the mock trial. And I just wonder, by a show of hands of the members, either your physical hand or your Zoom hand, if your schools have such a program right now. And perhaps not yet, but perhaps this would encourage the development of that type of a program. And I know that some of the accredited and registered schools do have those programs available, and this may foster the development of more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was a really big campaign. I mean, when we put out for public comment this question about whether mock trials should be acceptable for MCLE credit, I mean, we just received such an outpouring of how these programs really kind of help people. We even had people who had done the program in high school and they're now judges. So like how, what a testament to, just different types of learning, and how, what things stay with us as we, grow up. So yes, the mock trial programs are always feel good. Well, I guess it depends, because sometimes when you're I coached, I mean, I've scored for them a number of times, and those kids are so sharp. I mean, they sometimes they seem better than actual attorneys, so that can be a little bit scary. But anyways, yes, I would encourage everybody to participate in mock trial if you don't already. Yes, Ms. Park. Jessica.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I just had a few questions. When I was looking at the State Bar site, you know, I don't think I hit the right location for these updates. Is it already up there on the State Bar site, or is there a certain timeline that the updated requirements that you talk about will be up at the
Yes.
State Bar site?
So the updated requirements are on our provider side already. And they will be on the compliance side, which is the attorney side, probably by the end of the month. They were just working out some of the final details regarding the charts and compliance charts. So that should be up there by the end of the month. But if you look on the MCLE provider page, then you will see that those changes are there. And they're also in the State Bar rules, so you could take a look there too. It's all these changes are State Bar Rule 3.601.
Great, thank you. Just because besides faculty, talking to alumni as well. And yeah, I just want to refer them back to a place they usually look for those. So thank you. I also had one more question just about system. If you're focused on live synchronous presentation, is there a certain system you plan to run it from, or a certain software you're going to use?
Well, our live programs, we mostly been using Zoom, so we're not getting a specialized platform or anything like that. We do, you know, we have our learning management system for our e-learning courses, but in terms of live programming, we've been using Zoom.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's helpful.
But if there's other platforms that are better or that might be, you know, please send those in your tips. I mean, of course, we have a tight budget, but we always looking to improve our education.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions before I talk to you a little bit about the lawyer assistance program? Okay, great. So the lawyer assistance program is a program that helps California attorneys, active, inactive, or disbarred, State Bar applicants, and law students who have issues with substance use or mental health, or if they have personal or career concerns. Now, what this program does, it enhances public protection, it helps maintain the integrity of the legal profession, and it assists participants who have substance use or mental health issues. Now, the lawyer assistance program is governed under Business and Professions Code 6234, and our services are all confidential unless they're waived by the participant or a mandated, or if there's a mandated reporting by a healthcare professional, such as if somebody said something that they were a danger to themselves, a danger to other, issues regarding child abuse or elder abuse. Additionally, the information cannot be disclosed as part of a civil proceeding, a disciplinary proceeding, or a public records request. So that's really important to know. A lot of people, you know, are unsure if they come to the bar, how much of the information is shared. And if you come to the lawyer assistance program, none of the information is shared. It's completely confidential. So now let's talk a little bit about what we can do for you. So in 2022, LAP was reorganized into two kind of specialized components, the monitoring side and the support services side. Now, the monitoring LAP remains in our Office of Professional Support and Client Protection, and it really offers traditional monitoring services. And the majority of the participants in that program are referred by our discipline system or the Office of Admissions. Now, the support services side of LAP is now housed in the Office of Professional Competence. And what we do is we conduct outreach and education for LAP, as well as provide transition assistance service. So what we're looking at, we are currently working on building out our services just to really focus on some of the gaps that we've seen in kind of providing support to the whole person of attorney, not just kind of professionally. So we are working on expanding some of those services. So stay tuned for that. But in terms of right now, we do offer free short-term career counseling. So you can get two of those sessions with a counselor who has experience working with attorneys. And we also provide 2 free one-on-one sessions with a personal counselor if you have issues in stress, relationship challenges, burnout, or grief. So this is what is offered on the support side. And then in terms of our monitoring side, we do have licensed mental health clinicians. And what they do is they really conduct an intake and assessment to determine the issues that the participant might be having. And then they help to find the therapist or counselor that would meet their needs. Weekly group meetings that are made of other attorneys that kind of are sharing, having similar issues. And then completing forms and testing requirements timely. Some of the people that are in our monitoring program are required to do drug testing. And so their clinical monitoring analysts help them with that as well. And ultimately what they're trying to do is ensure successful completion of our lawyer assistance program. So if you have any personal questions that you don't want to ask in the group setting, please, or if you want to send me your 3 tips, please feel free to take down my information. You just have general questions, you can send them to our lap@calbar.ca.gov. Or you can visit our website where we have our intake form is there, or if you want to request a competency presentation, you can do that there as well. I really want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. And if anybody has any general questions, I'd be happy to answer them now.
Kathy, just a quick question on the sessions available to students. Are those for their entire JD career, or is it 2 per year? What could they expect?
Oh yeah, well, right now it's 2 per lifetime.
Okay.
But that being said, we are looking at and kind of reassessing to see if that model still works. And so that may be changing in the future. So I would encourage them, if they have these issues, to ask for our help now. And then if they want our services in the future again, then we could look at it on a case-by-case basis, but they typically are lifetime services.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
I just had a quick question. I think you mentioned it near the end. I think you were saying besides LAP, also you had competence sessions. So it sounds like those are, topics distinct from each other. Can you go a little bit more into what the competence session would be?
Yeah, so the competence sessions that we currently offer are the ones that are qualified for MCLE. And so it would be the prevention and detection of substance use disorder or mental health issues. That's one. And then the other one that we have that's kind of brand new for 2024 is our wellness. So just kind of giving them strategies and tools to recognize stress and to try to reduce it before it becomes a problem down the road. I mean, if you look at the stats for lawyers, we have almost the highest rates of everything. I guess we're just overachievers, in our whole world, in our our entire world. So yeah, that's what those competency presentations deal with.
Oh, thank you. And then in terms of coordinating these kind of presentations, it's the same contact though, in terms of who we go to ask or request for these kinds of sessions?
So for those sessions, we do have an online form that you can request, and it asks for some information about what date do you want it on and those types of things. So I will go ahead and drop our website in the chat, and then you could take a look there. And that has that information to request those presentations.
Oh, great. And then the way to request LAP sessions is different or the same as that form?
So there's 2 separate forms on the website. One is specifically to request a speaker, and one is specifically to request services. So there's 2 separate. So depending on your needs, yeah, we have the 2 forms.
Okay, thank you.
I think our chat's probably disabled for these kind of meetings.
Oh, it probably is. I'll send it to Natalie and she can get it to you.
Thank you. I'll be happy to do that.
Great. Anything else? All right. Well, again, thank you so much for allowing me to spend a little time with you today, and I hope you have a great rest of your meeting.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate you taking the time to be here.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, so that brings us back to our discussion item related to topics for the fall 2024 Law School Assembly and Registrars meeting. I think I can start us off on one that is pretty much a no-brainer in terms of interest, and that, of course, is the future of the bar exam. Of course, we don't know yet whether we're looking at a Cal bar exam with new content, new modalities, all remote, hybrid, remaining in person, what sort of questions will be included, what any additional portfolio bar exam might be after the pilot. So there's a lot we don't know, but I would suggest maybe a first step that could be taken that could wind up being a topic at the law school assembly would be to come up with some sort of timeline that schools might be able to offer suggestions for. And what I'm thinking is, we at the law school level, I'm sure I'm not the only one who gets questions from grads, from students, when's the bar exam changing? How is it changing? Is it going to be this next gen thing? What's going on? And we, don't have questions at this point, and we may not have questions for some time. So I think it might be really helpful for there to be some sort of timeline developed, maybe with benchmarks for when decisions are expected to be made, or prototypes available, or more experiments, samples, what have you. I'm pretty confident in saying that there would be more than one law school who would be happy to work with staff to try to provide some suggestions about the types of questions and anxieties that we're hearing from, particularly from current students looking down the line at what the future of the bar exam might be here in California, and maybe suggest some ways to provide information on timing that'll help ease some of those anxieties. So I guess I'm thinking this could be something that CS bars and other law schools could help with, and then if that timeline is created, that could be sort of a framework for the discussion as being a topic at the law school assembly in the fall. I think we've also previously talked about the profile of the California Law Schools report that came out relatively recently, and seems like that'll be one in a series. So that might be another topic on how to take advantage of the law school's insights into how to achieve whatever the particular goals are of future installments, and shaping apples to apples comparisons and trying to give the easiest to digest information to the public. So I would throw those out as a couple of potential topics. We may end up with topics that come out of any CBE referrals that might come to CS bars as well. But right now, just thinking of sort of more broadly. With that, I'd like to open it to others to suggest potential topics that we might want to keep in mind in the build up to the actual meetings in the fall. Yes, George.
Well, I hope this dovetails nicely with your suggestion, Dean Keller. By next fall, I would hope that everything that's being done with regard to modifying the first year exam will have happened, and there'll have been perhaps one administration in June or two, I think, in October. frankly, I was disappointed. I know the discussions are going on behind closed doors in terms of what's happening, what it'll look like, and particularly and most importantly, whether the committee will take Dr. Bolus's suggestion and take a good hard look at the cut score and perhaps make a modification that would be consistent with what the Supreme Court did in terms of the bar exam cut score. So by the law school assembly, I would hope we would be able to get from staff a fairly comprehensive discussion of what's been done and perhaps some discussion of how it all came about.
Well, I think the cut score has to be adjusted in some way, simply because the question mix has changed, but whether but that's a given.
Well, that's exactly my point, and it will change. And I don't think the change will go into effect with virtually no public comment or discussion ahead of time, or any input from the public or further discussion from Dr. Bolus. So it's going to happen. We all know that, and at some point it would be helpful to students taking the exam to know, and schools and deans, as to what was done and why.
Yeah. Let me ask though. It sounds like you're anticipating the law school assembly as a policy-making body, and my understanding has always been that it's more of a place to disseminate information to the law school. So, do I have that wrong, Natalie?
Regarding the law school assembly, generally it is, it's more of a reporting, but with interactive feedback as well.
Well, and that's all I'm asking is I'm asking for a report as to what was done and what will then be, the state bar policy in terms of everything relating to the first year, grading, cut score, any modification. A lot of time and money was spent a year ago. Many of us, Dean Park and I spent a long day on the 9th floor reviewing 100 questions relating that are now going to be the only part of the exam that remains. And we never heard, I know there's a new director, principal analyst that's dealing with examinations. We never got any feedback as to whether any suggestions made. I think there were 20 participants from ABA schools and Cal Accredited and Registrars schools as to what was going to be done with regard to the banks of multiple choice questions. And that was long before we now know those banks, which are 40 plus years old, will be used exclusively for purposes of testing first year law students. So I'm not asking for, and I don't expect to get any meaningful input for purposes of making, and how those changes will be made. It's more just tell us what was done and how and why.
Well, I think from my perspective,
Well, we might want to just remember that these topics were not noticed for discussion today, but we are gathering topics for future meetings. And so we definitely do want to collect a robust list in that regard.
Well, I'm just asking that it be added to the list.
So shipping back to the bar examiners.
I'm sorry, Paul, you cut out. We didn't hear anything you said.
I know Paul said that there are some things going on in his space that might lead him in and out a bit today. So we can ask him when he returns.
Okay. All right. Dean Park.
Thank you. I was just I think my comment, oops. It might be that there's some background noise coming through. Okay, thank you. So I'm very appreciative that we're looking at this far ahead of time. I definitely think while the law school assembly, the registrars meeting, it's definitely a certain space where you tailor what you're covering to the audience. It turns out, everyone being stakeholders, including the staff at our law schools and the students that are attending they're already tuning into the public. I don't know if I can't speak for every dean, but I know my students are tuning into the events that are public, and it's a great thing. It's something we encourage, but it definitely can lead to a time where we want to have more, be more equipped, whether it's with advance notice or tools on discussing some of the topics with our students or staff. So I think where I would just concur with what's the comments made before, like anything that's focused on really equipping the law school deans or law school staff on how to just manage different tasks or even manage, I think, some of the, confusion or anxiety of students as they're approaching things. I think anything that's been offered in staff reports or in meetings like ours or to the Committee of Bar Examiners is very helpful. It's part of what the public tunes into. But if there's any sort of extra equipping to deans, especially because in our role at the schools, we're in a position to be able to solicit and coordinate stakeholder inputs a little more calmly in an organized way with advance notice. I think it's helpful. And just some examples I would have here. I know there's that study on modality. I know that there was that accommodations town hall. I know there's a lot of discussion about provisional licensure, the pathway moving forward, and for the portfolio bar exam. These are all things our students listen to public meetings and come to our staff and to me about and want to know more about. And so it's really helpful when we know about just the status or certainty of things, especially when it becomes effective as options for our students, and to help them not panic in the sense of, oh, I'm going to run into something unprepared and not really in the optimal position. I think when you're equipping law school deans, just think about it like the toolkit principle. Just what additional can we offer to tell people that they're getting the kind of information so they can be optimally positioned for whatever is coming up, not just that they're facing change, but the care has been taken and we have been informed that we can give them sort of the tools for their success at a point they can truly make use of it and implement it in time. So I think anything with that kind of nature and presentation is very helpful. I get how Paul's talking about, like, some reports don't make sense to go to certain audiences, but just to remember at the end of the day, they do attend public meetings. These are recorded. They're getting the information. I think just the thoughtfulness of perhaps packaging what you can to be toolkits for the deans to communicate to their stakeholders well and on time will always be appreciated, whatever the topic is. I mentioned some, but of course there can be more.
Great. Very good. Dean Leal, is your hand up from earlier, or did you have another topic to add?
Oh, my bad.
No worries. Any other thoughts from others about what we might want to include in the mix?
I'm back. Was there any unfinished business with me? I think my interruptions are over now.
I don't think we heard your last statement before. I don't know if it was directed here or it was due to environmentally, but I think we were just asking what was the last thing you said.
Oh, gotcha. I think I was making the point that we, at the CBE, we are expecting further reports back on the progress of the changes to the first year exam. So if you watch our agenda and look at that, they tend to come now in the director's report, which is now listed on our agendas as one single line item. It doesn't break out what the subtopics are. So you'll just have to pay attention to that. For this upcoming meeting, a PowerPoint, I believe, is posted, attached to the agenda, so you can look at that to see what's going to be talked about. But you're going to have to kind of be vigilant, as I guess my point to you.
Thank you.
And toward Dean Park's comment, one thing that I will say is we're always interested in knowing the best way for you to be able to communicate with your students So we're using right now the newsletter for the administrators. We're using the e-blast to the students copied to you. We do not yet have the capability for text. We know that we've heard that text is popular. You have your own systems where sometimes we can give you the information. You can load them into the LMSs. So hearing the kinds of things that you need or that you would want in addition to the tools that we offer would help, not necessarily needing to share them here, but letting us know what your student body most appreciates, and also giving us feedback about the tools we're using now can certainly help us in that type of regard. And getting a question of this type of level of detail is so helpful for staff at this point. We will also reach out to the registrars as well for the registrars meeting, because sometimes there are questions or confusions or concerns where a solution can even be proposed and implemented prior to the meeting or put out for comment at the meeting. So having each year we move this point back a little bit earlier because we're able to do that a little bit more richly with more time. So greatly appreciated.
Great, thank you. One other thought that came to mind, just thinking about the last law school assembly, we had some interesting kind of foundational work on AI. I know there's been some developments at the bar in terms of putting out some guidance regarding the use of AI, and that might just be something to keep an eye on in terms of what sort of impact that might have in terms of legal education, or thinking about best practices that schools might be developing, whether that's a law school assembly or some another venue.
And I do think we'll be getting some updated information from the CBE, the professional competence group, the group that Kathy is from, that you heard today, worked with a subcommittee to create some guidance regarding AI for attorneys. And the Board of Trustees has asked the CBE to consider some guidance for law schools and law students. And that was new to them. They didn't really have too much time to think about it at that point. They'll be discussing it further, and I imagine bringing that back to CS bars and potentially also to the Law School Assembly.
Okay, great.
So stay tuned for more as we learn more as well.
Sounds good. Any other topics that come to mind that we might want to keep on our radar in terms of suggestions for the Law School Assembly or Registrars meeting?
I'll note how exciting it is that there are not a long list of questions about the applicant portal. It's becoming a part of students' everyday lives, and you've become more familiar through the demos, and we appreciate you collaborating with us to make it a really valuable tool.
No, that is definitely something a lot of my colleagues have become very familiar with, and them being able to do that to help students and grads is definitely, as Dean Park put it in terms of toolkits, that's definitely another good tool to have in our toolkit to try to manage those stress and anxiety as they're going through that process.
Well, it's also been very helpful for us as we respond as close as we can to situations in real time. For example, the deferral and credit opportunity for those in Sacramento and also in San Diego, it becomes much more possible with the applicant portal.
Right. Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone.
All right. Anything else? We don't have to keep talking till 3, but I don't want to tie people off either, just because yeah, certainly this is not like the last opportunity. I'm sure Natalie will be open to having folks email her if you think of other topics to put in the mix. But if no one has anything else they wanted to bring up right now, then I think we can wrap up for today. All right, then. Sorry, Natalie, I couldn't tell if you were about to say something.
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, then with that, we will adjourn. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone. Bye.
Bye.